Shuttle diplomacy at all levels to defuse the growing hostility between Russia and the West over Ukraine conflict seems to be failing, even at the highest levels. US President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin held a telephonic conversation for over an hour, but the talks between the two presidents failed to ease tensions. During the call, US President Joe Biden insisted that Russia will face swift and severe costs if Russian troops carry out an invasion, and that such a step would produce widespread suffering and isolate Moscow. Washington says the call between the two leaders has brought no major change in the Ukraine standoff. A White House statement said that the United States remains prepared to engage in diplomacy and is also prepared for other scenarios. Both leaders, however, have agreed to continue dialogue. Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin also discussed US and NATO response to Moscow's proposals on long-term international legal guarantees on Russia's security. Russia is seeking binding security guarantees from the West that include a pledge to roll NATO forces out of Eastern Europe and to never expand into Ukraine. Washington has flatly rejected the demands, but offered talks on a new European disarmament agreement with Moscow. Kremlin said that the Russian president told his US counterpart that Washington has failed to take Russia's main concerns into account and that it had received no substantial answer on key issues, NATO's expansion and deployment of forces to Ukraine. The call between the two leaders came hours after the White House said that Russia could carry out an invasion into Ukraine any day now, even before the end of Beijing Winter Olympics. According to reports, US Secret Service, CIA, and the Pentagon are said to have received an intel of an exceptionally detailed invasion plan scheduled for February the 16th. Washington's warning of an all-out Russian invasion any day intensified weeks of tensions between Russia and the West. Following a frenzy of telephone diplomacy, Kremlin, in a statement, denounced Washington's statements, calling it peak hysteria. French President Emmanuel Macron, too, spoke to both Putin and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in an attempt to defuse the tensions. Countering United States warnings of an invasion, the French presidency said that there were no indications from what Putin told Macron that Russia is preparing an offensive against Ukraine. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is also due to travel to Kyiv on Monday and then visit Putin as European leaders strive to keep lines of communication open with Moscow. Scholz had earlier added his voice to European pledges to punish Russia with severe sanctions targeting its financial and energy sector if it invades Ukraine. Dr. Anna Matvieva is a Russian affairs analyst. Dr. Anna is now joining us live from London to talk more about this. Dr. Matvieva, thank you for your time and welcome to WION.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the program.
What is your assessment of the current situation at the Ukraine-Russia border? Will Russia heed to its promise of not planning to attack Ukraine?
I think that the idea that Russia is going to attack Ukraine pretty soon is really a fantasy. I think that it probably reflects an intelligence failure on behalf of the United States and maybe the West. And if we look at the situation in Afghanistan a few months earlier, the threat level was very much underestimated. In this particular case, things went too far the other way. Russia consistently said that they are not going to invade. They had a chance to do it in 2014. They didn't take it. So the build-up of troops and exercises is a signal to the West. It's far, far less to do with the actual European security. And to be fair, President Zelensky and his top team have been saying the same thing in the last few days, asking not to panic and also saying that the threat level is vastly exaggerated.
Dr. Anna, is diplomacy working? We have seen forays made by President Biden and Macron to try and ease the tension between Putin and Zelensky. Will the Kremlin reach a compromise on this matter?
Yes, they will, if they will hear something where the West is going to meet them halfway. So far, they have not seen any semblance which would be something which they can talk about. What Russia wants is to make Ukraine something like Finland was during Soviet times. Finland was the member of the Western community, but it was not a NATO member. It didn't have troops deployment of United States or anybody else. It didn't have any offensive capabilities. And there was also neutral but fairly stable relationship. This is something which Russia now wants to achieve in relation to Ukraine. And we are nowhere Finland 2 scenario now.
Dr. Anna, Russia has denied claims, like you said there, and warnings by the West that an attack on Ukraine will happen any day now. Russia has also accused the US of stoking fear in Ukraine. What do you make of these statements?
I think that they have a point because what has been achieved is really, I would say, not in the best interest of Ukraine, because the West clearly showed that when there is some kind of threat, real or exaggerated, what they want to do is to leave as soon as possible. Now, Kiev's airspace is almost but closed because now civilian aircraft is not going to fly there. People are leaving in large numbers. Countries around them are also saying that we are preparing to take refugees. So in terms of economic blow, in terms of investor confidence, in terms of social impact, this is not very good news for Ukraine's interests.
Finally, Dr. Anna, some countries, including the US, have urged their citizens to leave Ukraine immediately. Russia has also ordered several diplomatic staff to leave Kyiv. In your own view, are these panic warnings justified?
No, absolutely not. And the idea that Russian troops would be in Kyiv on Tuesday, I think we really have to take a deep breath and come back to common sense and stop this fear-mongering, which is really, really very unpleasant and does nothing to create a good atmosphere for talks about real issues of European security and European future.
Dr. Anna Matvieva, thank you very much for your time and your insights and for talking to WION today.
Thank you. You're most welcome. Yeah, thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.